Welcome, welcome, welcome. Good afternoon, Los Angeles. 12:20 a.m. and 98.1 FM. I know Patty loves that expression. So here we are with my co-host. Wow, the song is really good, and it's really going on. And I love the inspiration from the Rocky Show. So my co-host, Patty, I don't know if you've seen her, but she has seen her or heard her. She has a new show called Starting Over, and it's currently every Wednesday, every second Wednesday at 12 a.m. But she may or may not change.
12 p.m. p.m. 12 p.m.
Oh, I look like an a.m.
No.
Yes, that would be very good. You're midnight with
I'm
Patty.
in La La Land. Yeah, no. That's not a good time.
Well, it might be a good time.
Oh, dear.
You control the airwaves.
Yeah, that's, yeah,
And
true.
people like Corey would wake up at, 10 o'clock at night to come down here. That's really cool. So as I was talking last week, the Ask Brien website, I thought it was going to be launching last Monday. We're very, very close, but it's still not. The revision is still not there. And the revision has a couple of new features for people that don't know much about the Ask Brien radio show or the Ask Brien website. The Ask Brien concept is basically to provide business resources to business people to help them in many, many ways. And the Ask Brien radio show is also here to try to teach people something about business. If you learn just one thing from our show, then we've achieved our goal. We also have a website at Ask Brien, Brien, the only way to spell Brien. The A-N or Y-A-N doesn't make any sense to me. But we have a website, and the website allows experts to answer questions, community to answer questions, experts to post their blogs, experts to post their videos, experts to post webinars and anything that they have planned, ebooks. So if somebody wants to actually go to a webinar, they can actually go onto our site, pick a webinar that's of interest to themselves, put it onto their own Google Calendar or their iCalendar system, or if they have a specific question to ask, they can ask an expert, which is something that you can't really do. And currently, we don't charge anything for anybody, so it's a free resource, and we're just trying to educate people. And we also try to educate people through the radio. So, we have a wonderful guest today, as we always do. Our fabulous guest is actually calling in from a little bit farther away than our normal guest. I'll let her explain where she's from. And her name is Brenda Walton. Brenda, are you there?
I am.
Okay, so you can tell people where you're from or not. That's your choice. But it's not in the United States. I'll leave it at that.
It's not. I'm from far northern Alberta in Canada. I often joke and say that I'm not technically Santa Claus's neighbor, but I'm close enough to be his neighbor.
And do you have reindeer like Rudolph?
No. I have regular old trucks and cars, just like.
Welcome to the show, Brenda.
Thank you.
Nice to have you here. You're listening to KHTS, your hometown station, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM. So tell us a little bit about your background. Peter shared some information off air, but share.
Peter, I'm Brien Johnson.
Yes, we'll have a conversation about that another time.
Speak to Coach.
Yeah.
As is usually the issue.
I know you're listening, Coach, so we'll have that, conversation later. Okay, back to our guest. Brenda, share some background.
So I'm a woman empowerment coach, transformational coach, and I am the creator of a program called Worthy. It came to me when I was going through my own journey of discovering who I am and what I stand for and what I believe in, and that came about from some life experiences that have happened to me. At one point, I'll start at the very beginning. So when I was a little girl, I was quite sassy and confident, and I had an uncle who always tells this favorite story of his to tell of me, and I stayed with him and my aunt one weekend and was helping do chores in the morning, and he had carried two large pails of grain out to the corrals to feed the bulls, set one by the gate and took the other one into the pen, and because I couldn't see what he was doing, I stood on one of the pails and was kind of peeking between the two fence rails. And when he turned around and saw me doing that, he hollered at me to get my muddy boots out of his grain pail. And he says, I looked at him square in the eye with my hands on my hips, and I said, "You're not the boss of me." So I had this sassiness when I was little.
I love it.
And then over time, like a lot of people, a lot of women especially, that slowly faded away. So we get taught in spoken and unspoken ways that somehow we just don't measure up. And it's sometimes by things that people say to me, like, for example, if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. And it's sometimes by just actions of others. So someone in my class told everybody else that if they wanted to be friends with her, then they couldn't be friends with me anymore. And so we get these messages that we need to conform, we need to fit in, we need to only speak when spoken to. And so this sassiness or this fearlessness that we had as little girls, we often lose. And my pivotal or my shifting moment came when I was in my corporate job and going through a merger that felt a whole lot more like a hostile takeover. The media at that time referred to it as Care Bears meets G.I. Joe. And I was on the Care Bear side of that, so it wasn't a pleasant time for me. And at the same time, I found out that my partner of two years had multiple affairs and had multiple women pregnant and expecting his children. And so
oh dear.
It was a major time where I had to step back and go, how did I get to this point, and how did this all become what is my life? And so that started this journey that led me to my development of my Worthy program.
I love it. That's fantastic. What a story. Our experiences and our life, it seems like some of the most painful lessons, the most hurtful experiences really create the most beautiful, compassionate people, because we evolve into such brilliance. And I think that's, although it's painful and hard to experience and go through it, once we come out the other side, it's great to look back and realize, wow, look at what I've come through, what I've done, and it sounds like you've done that. It's interesting. With my Starting Over show, there's some overlap there with what you're doing, and I resonate with that. So when you do coaching, do you do? Is it more of a one-on-one coach? Are you more corporate coaching? Do you do it with individuals personally? What is your business model like?
I have been working a lot individually with people. They come to me, with different problems that are showing up. Sometimes it's relationships. Sometimes it's I'm not going to make month-end payroll. What do I do financially? Sometimes it's I'm in a work setting and it just feels toxic. I need to fix that. And so sometimes they'll come to me one-on-one. I'm moving more into a group focus. So I'm going to be launching some Worthy Women Wisdom Circles, and I'm going to be doing some women's retreats where I take women away for an immersive 7-day experience and work on each of the 7 steps in the Worthy process. Worthy is an acronym, and each letter stands for one of the steps in the process that I take them through.
Can you go over that program?
Absolutely.
So what is the first one, W?
The W stands for wake up. And I think that it takes great courage for someone to step back and really reflect on where they're at with their life and what they want to do about it. And that's what that step is all about. It's about getting clear in all areas of your life: finance, relationships, health, your personal life. Like, are you having fun and free time, or are you busy working all the time? So looking at all areas of your life and getting really clear about what is it that you do want, what is it that you have, is it working for you, what do you want to change about it, what do you want to do about it, and in some cases, what do you need to release, what do you need to let go because it's no longer serving you, it's no longer the right path for you.
So I have a question on that. Would it be closer
Yes?
to awareness or reality?
I'm not sure I understand the question, but I think
So
what you're asking is
the stage that you're
there.
referring to, is it closer to awareness, knowing what's going on, and trying to figure out what's happening, versus reality, which is a little bit slightly different than awareness, which is, you know, I have these beliefs in my head, and those aren't really the beliefs. It's really there's a different world that I'm really not there for. Which would you think, analogy-wise, would be closer? I always like to ask the
So,
tough questions.
so in this step, it's really about reality. The beliefs and stuff we deal with in the next step, the O. But in this case, it's really getting clear and honest about what's actually happening in your life. And often people will come to me and they just feel stuck. They don't know why their life doesn't feel on track. So they've never actually taken a step back and had a good hard look at what is and isn't working. And that's the first step. And then a lot of times they don't even know that they have limiting beliefs that are keeping them stuck in those situations. So that's the work that we do in the next step.
And how long of a process is that typically, average?
Well, I've worked with women in an afternoon and had them have some breakthroughs, and I've also taken, weeks and months to work with women. It just depends on their willingness and how willing they are to actually be vulnerable and be really clear at looking at all areas. I think often we wear these masks, and we get so accustomed to wearing these masks, and there's a fear of taking that off because you might see my real self. And so sometimes people just need to work through that to get to a point where they can really just be honest about what's going on in their life. And so the sessions that take a little bit longer, sometimes there's that's going on in the beginning.
Yeah, I find that those who are willing to be completely vulnerable and let the walls down are the ones who become the most empowered and have the bigger breakthroughs. Because unless you drop those walls and really become very raw and vulnerable, you can't get past that. So
Exactly.
For you to be able to facilitate that is great. So what was the O? I know you said that was next, but I'm not sure I caught what the O was for.
I don't think we got there.
The O stands for Own Your Power. And in this step, it's all about no longer playing small, no longer for settling for less than you deserve. And so we figured out what it is that you do want in your life, so how you're going to step up and start moving towards that. And often this is where the limiting beliefs show up. It may show up in I use a technique called RIM, R-I-M, and it was originally referenced in a book called Releasing Your Inner Magician. And it's a way to take people into a deeply meditative state and allow them take their own journey and find the messages that they need related to these major shifts that they want to make. And that's often when these limiting beliefs will show up. So it's life is always hard, there's never enough money, I'm not smart enough to go back to school, all of these things that often show up as our resistance or our barriers to moving into the life that we really want to have. And once you can see those, you can start addressing them. You can reframe them. You can figure out how we're going to change that belief so that we have a new empowering belief that supports us moving into the perfect life that we want. But you can't do anything with it until you actually identify it and break through it.
You're listening to 98.1 FM and 1220. I didn't reverse.
Would it be fair to say, Brenda, that the limiting beliefs that everybody walks around with, oftentimes we aren't even aware of those limiting beliefs. We are just programmed subconsciously. We have this recording in our brain that we learn at a very young age, and we aren't even aware that these beliefs exist. We just sort of evolve and become that. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely, I agree completely, and it's often in these sessions where I take them into this deeply meditative state that they have a remembrance of an event in a childhood time when somebody said something to them that left this belief ingrained in them. Mm-hmm. For example, don't say anything if you can't say anything nice. That's a belief that taught me to not speak my truth, to not stand up for myself, especially if what I was doing wasn't nice. If I was pushing the envelope or doing something that people around me weren't probably going to like, then I often would stuff my own voice down and not speak my truth, because I had this belief from childhood that if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all. Mm-hmm. It's the same with people who struggle with money. They often were told as children, what do you think? Money grows on trees, or, beliefs that they grew up with that they don't hold consciously, they hold subconsciously, mm-hmm. and it affects their decision making.
Yeah, and that mentality, that same money beliefs, so much of what I see in the work I do is it's a lack mentality versus an abundant mm-hmm. mentality. And if you're of the minds that are brought up with, money doesn't grow on trees, I can't afford that, we don't have that money, that's coming from lack versus coming from a place of abundance, which isn't the norm.
So do you, in that part of the program on the O part, do you actually teach people to be proactive, or you just allow them to try to find themselves and find some inner confidence?
Well, what's interesting, and I read this in a Brene Brown book, and she said once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. So in this step, when they start to identify that they have even one limiting belief, the next time they run into a challenge in day-to-day life, they'll start to see a pattern where either this belief keeps showing up, or they find a new belief that they now need to work through and break through and address. But once they see that they have that pattern, they can't unsee it. And oftentimes we're operating at a place where we don't even know that we have these belief patterns that are holding us back.
So how do you find those patterns?
It's often in the deeply, in the sessions that I take them through, they'll uncover something. They'll remember a past childhood experience, or they'll uncover it that way.
I like it. So what is the R? Let's move to the R.
So the R stands for Relate with Love, and that step involves two pieces of work. The first and most critical is unconditional love of self, and the second is unconditional love of others. And why I say unconditional love of self is so critical is that often people who struggle with self-confidence or self-worth are so busy caring for and giving to other things, their family, their community, their church, their work, whatever it is. And they're so often so focused on all of that they don't even have themselves on their own list of priorities. And we can't be our best selves. We can't be that role model for the people who are walking in our footsteps if we aren't embracing a strong self-care, self-love mentality. And I used to, when I first started tackling this was one of my biggest ones. When I first started tackling this, I used to think that it was, self-indulgent, or I shouldn't be doing that. I should be caring for, I felt guilt when I would take time to care for myself, which is often what happens with women. Yeah. But it's critical. If we can't care for ourselves, how do we teach others that it's okay? Mm-hmm. How do we model that for others if we're not even loving and kind to ourselves? And often the loving and kindness that we show to ourselves is the other piece that helps us break through some of our more challenging limiting beliefs and challenges that we bump up against in everyday life. If you can't have forgiveness and kindness for yourself, you're just going to reinforce those negative beliefs that, here we are again, you're demonstrating that you're not worthy once again, and so, see, I told you, instead of having this compassion for you that said, yeah, we discovered once again that we still maybe have some lingering doubt about this or that or the other thing, but let's try it one more time, and let's give it one more chance, and let's break through it one more time. So
yeah, it definitely starts within us. We've got to go to commercial break, Brenda. We'll be right back. You're listening to your hometown station, KHTS. Stay with us.
Can you
Life's not meant to feel complacent. It's meant to make you feel alive. The youth ministry at the Church on the Way Santa Clarita believes that students can belong to the group where we will help them believe they have a purpose in Christ and become all that He has created them to be. We want to see God's power come alive in our generation. We love meeting new people, so come hang out with us. Doors open at 6 p.m. and service starts at 7 every Wednesday night. For more information about the Church on the Way Santa Clarita, including service times and what's happening through the end of the year, visit tcotwsc.org.
Healthcare can be difficult if you're underinsured or have Medi-Cal. Samuel Dixon Family Health Center can help. Services are available on a sliding fee schedule. The mission of the Samuel Dixon Family Health Center is to give the Santa Clarita Valley access to affordable, quality primary care. There are 3 locations to serve you: Canyon Country, Newhall, and Valverde. Go to sdfhc.org for more information and to find the location most convenient for you.
If you're in danger of losing your home to foreclosure, you need an expert. Hi, I'm Rich Sherman with Alta Realty. I've helped hundreds of Santa Clarita residents save their homes completely for free. I've got just over 20 years experience and a loan modification success rate of over 80%. I can negotiate better terms with your bank and I can save your home from foreclosure. And again, we do this completely for free. So if you're in any danger, please call me today at 661-714-1400. That number again is 661-714-1400. I'm Rich Sherman with Alta Realty. I'll be happy to help you save your home for free.
Yeah, Rocky. Oh, who is that? Anyway, we're back and we're live and we're KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM and we have a wonderful guest, Brenda Walton. We were going through her analysis, which is worthy, WRTHY, and we actually had gone through how far till R, correct?
WOR. So W was wake up.
Did she need to finish up
own your
anything on the
power.
R, or did you finish that aspect though?
I would just say quickly that the other piece of relate with love under the R is unconditional love of others, and that's seeing them with non-judgment and forgiveness.
So is that also saying, hey, we want to see other people succeed no matter what? We don't
Yes.
care. Shouldn't affect us. Okay.
Absolutely.
And then so what was the T?
Yeah, T is trust self and source. This is a step that's all about intuition, and often people don't even know that they have the ability to tap into this. And so this step is all about getting people familiar with that and aware that they have that ability to tap both internally into a source internally and into a higher source like God or Buddha or the Creator, whatever it might be for you.
So give an example of that and how that maybe in something that you've dealt with.
So the intuition often shows up when people are trying to figure out what their vision is or the next direction that they want to take their business in, and so they'll connect to they'll just ask a question like, what's my next step in my business? Or I had a woman that I worked with that really didn't even know what her life purpose should be, and so tapping into that and getting wisdom from that, because often we're in our analytical brain trying to figure it all out, and sometimes if we just let go of that and let the wisdom come to us, we often get really brilliant ideas that way.
I think it's the intuition, if we can just quiet our minds enough to hear it, is a beautiful thing. It's oftentimes hard to quiet our minds to that place where we can just hear that. So moving forward then, we have H and Y. What is the H?
H is honor your past, and that's all about people can't move forward, be their most successful self if they're stuck in their painful past. So honoring your past is about celebrating all the great things that have happened that brought you to where you are, but also addressing and releasing any emotional attachment that you still have, keeping you in the past, keeping you stuck there.
Well, so I have a question for you there. So you're basically saying to release the past, but you don't want to also deny the past, right? So if you've had a situation in your life, and yes, you want to move forward, are you suggesting that you deny that it ever occurred, or you're just saying it happened and other things happen to other people that are different than myself, and I just need to figure out how to live with it.
Yeah, I had a client once and this was a big step for her. She had a lot of physical abuse growing up as a child, and that was keeping her stuck. She was always believing that she, couldn't have any greatness in her life because she had this major trauma from when she was a child. And so in some work that I did with her, she actually, in one of these meditative states, she found a box of painful memories that she remembered locking away as a child. And when she pulled them out, it didn't change the event. The event still happened, but it changed how she felt about the event. So she actually, at some points, found compassion for the people who had been harmful to her because she realized that they probably had their own traumas that they were dealing. So hurt people, and she found some compassion for that and was able to let that go. It didn't change the fact that it happened to her, but she was no longer emotionally stuck because of it.
That's awesome.
That's quite a breakthrough.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, she's less of the victim now. She's now the empowered woman who comes to that place of compassion for that person. That's
Absolutely
a fabulous place to be. Good for her.
Yeah.
Well, that takes a lot to be able to be in that position and to not, try to go back after those people, whatever. When you experience something, that's just pure nature, I believe, is vengefulness and whatever. Not even vengefulness, just to try to make that other person pay for what happened to you. So to be able to get past that I don't think is an easy thing to do.
No.
Yeah, good for her.
And I think we got to why.
To why, yes.
And that is, why did this all happen?
No, Y stands for yes to life. So once people have worked through all of those steps that help them release their sort of stuckness, why am I not thriving, and why do I not have the life that I want, then they're in a place of yes to life. And so I can give you an example of a client that I actually worked with that she had probably a year prior to coming to me had bought this dysfunctional business. It was struggling financially. They had a bad reputation in the community, and she bought it because she had always wanted to own that kind of business and worked really hard for an entire year building that business up. And she was getting employees back, and customers were coming back, and she was just kind of starting to turn a reasonable profit, and regaining some reputation in the community. And then had some unanticipated expenses come up. And so she contacted me because she was stuck. She was so fearful that because of those expenses that she wasn't going to be able to make month-to-month payroll. And she was so humiliated by the fact that here she had done all this work, and now her payroll checks were going to be bouncing all over town, and she was just mortified by that. And so I got her to work through some of her limiting beliefs that she had about that. And once we were clear on some of those things, then she identified this product that she could launch, that she had identified, but she hadn't yet launched, and she could launch it. And we were very clear about how many units she needed to have in order to meet each of the month-end payrolls coming up. And so we built an action plan for her, and she even actually developed some affirmations related to her limiting beliefs that she then repeated for the next little while she was working on launching this project. And 2 weeks later, she contacted me, and she was so excited because she had already met her goal. She wasn't even at month end yet. She had already met her first goal, and she was so excited about it. But she had been so stuck in the humiliation of what am I going to do when these payroll checks start bouncing all over town and everybody knows and they're going to think this is an awful business, that she couldn't even find the opportunity in her business to move her out of it.
So the limiting beliefs, that's a huge turning point for most. And you mentioned that you put them into this meditative state, and you help them through some of those limiting beliefs. What exactly, walk me through what that looks like, that process that you do with them.
Yeah, and it's not always a meditative state that I take them in to find the limiting beliefs. It has been one way where it shows up. And so it's, I call it a journey. So they would go into meditation the way that they would normally always go in. And then they're invited to find a message. They're invited to use their intuition to bring forward a person that they need to speak to or an event that they need to address. And then there's an energetic exchange between the two where the most perfect example is when they bring forward someone that they need to speak to. So maybe it's a mother that's hurt you. And so there's a conversation in this meditative state that happens between the person, usually as their younger self, and the mother that maybe said something harmful. And it's in that exchange that they start to identify what their limiting belief is. And they also, like that other woman I described, they also start to find a place of compassion for that so that they're not stuck there. And then when they come out of this session, they have this awareness now that they have a different perception of what happened in that event. And some of the triggers that were created for them. And so then we can just start working on reframing them. So what's a more empowering way of experiencing that so that you don't always have this belief that you're not good enough, you aren't smart, or I know one woman who came out of a session like that, and she had always held this belief that she wasn't smart, and yet she, on paper, physically had doctorates hanging on her wall. So she was incredibly smart, but she was holding herself back because she had this belief that she wasn't.
Wow. You're listening to Brenda Walton. You're on KHTS, AM 1220 and 98.1 FM, your hometown station. Quick question. I remember reading one time that the right frontal cortex of the brain is our creativity. And when we're stressed, when we're anxious, when we're fearful, that part of the brain shuts down and it doesn't allow the creativity to blossom. So in listening to some of what you were just sharing, sounds like those individuals were completely shut down because of the stress and the fear of not making payroll or not being smart enough. And that didn't allow that creativity to blossom. Do you ever get involved with the actual neuroscience of the brain and that piece of it?
I actually am just studying that myself right now. So I'm doing an applied positive psychology program, and I'm fascinated by that stuff because I too was unaware of how even parts of my brain were functioning higher at certain points than others, and how you're right, when you're not in that creative brain space, it limits your thinking and you're in protection mode and it comes from our ancestors, the cavemen. They were conditioned to just survive, and so they're so used to using that part of their brain that they really it wasn't until later generations when we started to tap more fully into that creative part of our thinking.
Yeah, and our brain, that fight or flight, it's supposed to be there. So when people have that mode, I do some training under John Assaraf, who is very involved in the whole neuroscience, and it is fascinating. It's a very intriguing piece of it. And it's like the iceberg under the water. You know, it's just the huger piece of the activity than just what you see up above the water.
Absolutely.
Yeah, one other thing that I'm going to kind of segue here, the business owners who are listening might be thinking, well, what does this have to do with me building a business, and how does this relate to me being a better business owner? And I'm going to quote something that Jim Rohn said, who was sort of the godfather of personal development. And he said that it's more important to work on yourself than your business. So if you are, and I'll say that again, it's more important to work on yourself than your business. So for somebody who's, nose into the papers and nose to the grind doing business, but as a person not in a great place, you're always going to struggle. So to work on personal development, go through these things that you're speaking of, and get to a place of being content, being at peace, being empowered, you can tackle anything. It's just, it might take time, but if you have that foundation, you're going to do great. So for those business owners who are listening, that's how you would apply it to being a more successful business owner. You've got to look in the mirror and look deep at what you're dealing with.
But you have to, if you haven't gone through this program, you're not even aware.
True. So
do you teach classes on this, or how would people get in touch if they wanted to take this course?
So people can contact me through my website, BrendaWaltonInspires.com. I have some openings coming up for my Wisdom Circle, my Worthy Women's Wisdom Circle. If people are interested in joining that, they can contact me. And it's going to be, it's not quite a full year long, kind of a group coaching session where we'll meet monthly and we'll go through each of the steps, and each month we'll make a little bit further progress. But for some people, like I myself prefer one-on-one coaching and doing some intensive work and getting through that. And so I have that available for folks as well, too.
And is it limited to women?
Sorry?
Is it limited to women?
I work predominantly with women, but you're right. I actually have, just occasionally, every once in a while, I'll have a man showing up going, this applies to men, too. And I said, yes, I understand.
Yes, it does.
Did you write a book?
I have chapters in 2 books. My first book, Success University for Women, came out in 2016, and our most recent book, Women Who Influence, just came out this past March 27th. And both, I'm so excited, went to international bestseller status. So that was a pretty exciting time for us.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Awesome.
What's the standard for bestseller?
So the book was published in the U.S., and so it went to bestseller status on Amazon in Canada, which took us to international bestseller because it was in 2 countries.
Fantastic.
Fabulous. And you have any more books planned?
Well, it's interestingly enough, I did receive a title of a book through a meditation, so I'm dealing with my own beliefs about that, and can I write a whole book by myself, and do I have that much to say?
Yes, you do.
Well, I'm sure you have that much to say.
I'll tell you that right now. Yes, you do.
I know. Thank you.
Can you share some more stories? We have about another 12 minutes of interview time. Can you share some more stories about how somebody that had a business issue came to see you and how you were able to work them through it?
Yeah, actually, I was just talking to someone here the other day, and she had done some contract work for an agency, had got really positive comments and feedback from the agency related to that contract work that she had done, and was proceeding on a path of next steps. So meeting with individual managers and starting to work with managers on their plans and what they were going to do. And at a certain point, all contact with that agency stopped. And so she was stuck in a cycle of belief yesterday that she had done something wrong. And because this agency had just cut off all communication with her, despite the fact that she'd gotten really positive feedback on her workshop and on her one-on-one individual coaching that she'd done with some people. And so we actually, her belief was that that she had created this, that she had done something that had offended somebody, that she had basically severed this business contract. And so what I was able to point out to her was that first she was taking on the behaviors of other people. There could be any number of reasons why they stopped contacting her, and she had not followed up with them. So she had just really made up a story in her own head about all of the things that she had done wrong and why they hadn't contacted her again, but she hadn't really got clarity from them. So we started with that, and that was her first step to sort of reach out and figure out if there was something that she needed to change or figure out. But also it was preventing her from moving forward with other opportunities that she had in her business, because she was stuck in this belief that I do great work, and then they sever ties with me and they're not going to work with me again. And so she was fearful to take the next step in another opportunity that had presented it herself. And so we actually worked through some of that stuff so that she may not have ever got that that first original contract back. Maybe they ran out of money. Maybe there was a new person in head that's the head of the department that had a different vision. She had no clarity about that, but she also was preventing herself from moving into this new opportunity. And so I was able to help her focus on her beliefs about that, and also moving forward more confidently with this new opportunity, instead of being stuck in this story and this belief that she had about the other opportunity.
I would think that was pretty common. If you were doing something, you did something successful with an organization or an individual, and suddenly they just stopped returning calls and just fell off the face of the earth, you'd wonder, what the heck did I do wrong? What happened? And you would start to doubt yourself. I would imagine that's pretty common. I think I would probably go to that pretty quickly. Like, what did I do wrong?
You have Brenda's number, right?
I do. I might call you, Brenda.
Well, and you'd want, the first thing I do is pick up the phone and find out. I'm totally fine if people choose not to work with me anymore, but I do want to understand so that I can be better in what I do if there is something that I need to improve. But that step hadn't even happened, so it was so critical that she reached out to them and at least get that feedback from them.
Get the reality of the situation, yeah.
Yeah, you can't improve something if you don't know what the problem is.
Well, we have about 45 seconds before we go, but so what if you can't contact that person? So
there's someone within the organization that she could have contacted. There were multiple people that she had been working with.
Yeah, there's some relationship.
There's always
prior,
someone.
So completely understand. Tell us again your website, Brenda.
Brenda Walton Inspires.com. Inspires with an S on the end.
Okay. Did you have another question? Or
no, we're going to be right back, and then we're going to go for another about 5 or 6 minutes.
Okay. Be back.
Santa Clarita's premier senior living community, Oakmont of Santa Clarita, is leasing, bringing comfort and luxury to assisted living. Seniors can enjoy 5-star amenities, panoramic views, easy access to the freeways, and nearby shopping centers in a world-class community that provides an advanced continuum of care. No other community has this kind of luxury and amenities in our valley. You'll find good health, vitality, and purpose at Oakmont of Santa Clarita. Stop by for a tour. Visit oakmontofsantaclarita.com.
Buying your home can sometimes be challenging. That's why Charlene Gill with CSMC Mortgage is your Santa Clarita mortgage expert. What's important to you is to secure a loan at the best possible rate, to have a professional guide you through the process, and to close on time. Charlene's 23 years in the mortgage industry and her personal expert knowledge in the Santa Clarita Valley makes her your mortgage expert. Contact Charlene at hometownstation.com/Charlene. That's hometownstation.com/Charlene.
Hi, Kirk Stinson here with Plumbing by Kirk, your hometown plumber. I want to stress to you how important it is to get proper advice on what to do in case of emergencies. Always know where your shutoff valves are to be able to isolate it and have the problem taken care of on regular hours and avoid expensive plumbing bill.
We invite you to visit our website for free plumbing advice at plumbingbykirk.com or give us a call, 263-6519. That's 263-6519.
My dad is the best plumber ever. Plumbing by Kirk.
Drop in for a new virtual reality experience. DC Superheroes Drop of Doom VR. For a limited time at Six Flags Magic Mountain, take a ride on one of the world's tallest and fastest drop tower rides. Using special VR headsets, view the action while fully immersed in a 360-degree virtual world, plunging 400 feet at 85 miles per hour on Lex Luthor Drop of Doom. Plus, spend the day getting your fill of thrills on the most thrilling coasters in the world, like Twisted Colossus, Goliath, and more. Only at the thrill capital of the world. Are you ready for your chance at a day of Six Flags thrills for free? Keep listening to KHTS 98.1 and AM 1220 for your chance to win. Not a winner? You can still get the best deals on tickets, season passes, and memberships when you visit sixflags.com today. It's the all-new virtual reality experience at Six Flags Superheroes Drop of Doom, VR, only at Six Flags Magic Mountain.
Welcome back to KHTS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We have a wonderful guest, Brenda Walton. And, I was just thinking, I love that song, Rocky, and that's my inspiration. And so therefore, that's part of my Worthy program here of how I'm successful, because I actually, that gets me pumped up. And once I get pumped up, I can start going through bits and pieces of that program.
And the visual side to that is he's running around the station here with his arms up like he's gonna fight.
And like a caveman.
And he's pounding his chest, and I just run the hell out of here. Anyways.
So that's the caveman part.
I'm glad it works for him.
Oh dear. Okay, a quick question. We've got just a few minutes left before we're wrapping up our hour here. For business owners, so much of the challenge is finding clients, finding customers, and in your case, finding individuals who know you and like you and trust you enough to go through this coaching. How do you build your followers, your tribe? There's so many things that people do out there, from email marketing to social media marketing and everything else. What has worked for you?
The most frequent way that I find my clients is being at events and networking. So whether I'm there as a participant or whether I'm there as a speaker. I was speaking at a women's conference in Bermuda not that long ago, and there were probably, I want to say, 50 to 75 women in the room from corporate settings and from private business. They were running their own businesses, and I gave my 45-minute keynote, and then we broke for lunch, and I was just swarmed by women who resonated with I don't think they had ever sort of framed it in the I'm not worthy language, but when I described each of the steps, they went, yeah, that's how I feel. And so often it'll be at events like that where I'm either speaking or whether I'm a participant and sitting at a table and having conversations. It was actually at an event where I was talking to a woman about the Worthy program, and a man leaned forward into our conversation. He said, that applies to men too, because he had been listening in the background about what we were talking about. So they show up sort of in both those ways.
That's funny.
What about social media and online?
I'm just so I'm a newbie to some of those things, so I'm learning more with them, and I'm loving it because that's the age that we're in. People are actually more social online and connecting to people that way and building their networks and tribes. And so I'm finding the right groups with women who have similar messages to me and connecting that way, and finding and people are approaching me and wanting to work with me that way. So
I would love to have you as a guest, and I'll talk to you off air about this, but my radio show, I'd like to have you as a guest. I think you'd be a great guest speaker on my show, because it's focused on women who are starting over after divorce or loss of a spouse, and they're just getting their feet back on the ground. So I'd love to, but I'll talk to you off air about that. But I think that's wonderful. Do you ever do any corporate work where you go into corporations and work with the employees, just in empowering them, and any kind of leadership training within the corporate world?
I do. I'm certified as a cultural transformational facilitator, and it's taking corporations. It starts in say teams, or it can start as high as the CEO, but often it's in a team that's struggling with something, and it's getting really clear about their values. And when people can see each other through their similar values and different values, it's easier to connect with people. And so when you have employees that come into work every day that are fired up and excited to be there because they know they're a fit, their values match with the people that they're working with, that's when you have an organization powered by passion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody wins with that situation.
Well, I mean, passion is very big. How did you get your first customer or client?
Excuse me, I have a tickle in my throat.
You're getting choked up by being on air.
No, it was a tough question.
It's our exciting radio show. It makes people get choked up.
I got my first client from a friend who knew the work that I did, and she was actually wanting to change. They had they had adopted sort of the national values of their organization, but they'd never sat down as a local group and really talked through what their values were. So she knew that was the work that I did, and she brought me in that way.
That's wonderful. So when you do your keynote that you mentioned earlier, is that keynote talk typically the worthy and going through those the worthy program?
It is often related. I often will weave into my worthy steps the message of the conference. So if the conference is ignite your spark, then in each of the worthy steps, I help them to see that that's a step where they can ignite their spark.
Okay, great. Well, we're down to the last minute. So BrendaWaltonInspires.com is the website. Women Empowerment Coach. I think it's a fantastic gift that you offer. And
do you go remotely or do you go in person for the coaching?
I do both. It just depends on, because for example, I'm in Canada, but I've worked virtually with people in the UK. But I've also done one-on-one sessions locally, or when I was in California helping at events, I would sit down and do one-on-one sessions with people outside of that. So it just depends on where they are and what works best.
Do you have like a demo or webinar, maybe on YouTube or somewhere?
So I have another website, worthywomen.com, and there are some videos about each of the worthy steps there. And I also do on Facebook, every Wednesday, I have my Worthy Wednesday Facebook live call. So people, if they want to follow me there and learn some more about what the Worthy program is about, from time to time I'll have guests join me, and we'll talk about, I talk about one of the steps each week. So every 6 weeks I cycle back to the W.
I don't mean to interrupt, but we do have to go. I've been a great guest, Brenda Walton, and we'll mention your website, and anyone that has any questions can go there.
Thank
you, Brenda.
Thanks.